So, title of my lecture, Birth of World Economic System and Formation of Modern Society. Therefore, we follow the process of formation of global economy. Sorry. Not good position. From the Middle Ages, early Middle Ages, to the age of Industrial Revolution. If we are looking the trajectory of this course, necessary to realize some fundamental information concerning to my course. This is a lecture. Lecture, generally, one-way flow of information. I speak and you listening my lecture, but time by time I try to form some discussion about the problems. It's sometimes works, sometimes not. It's depend on the socialization. Because I lecture at the Central European University some years. A similar audience was at the Central European University, came from different part of the world. And very interesting impression was experiences about education at the Central European University, the different behavior of the student. Because there are two types of the education. The first type of education, according to my experiences, the German-like or the continental European style of education. What mean the European style of education? European style of education mean that the student, the pupil, take under pressure the parents and the teacher under pressure and communicate each other. I remember my elementary school experiences that time by time the teacher visited and met with my parents and told to them my thought. Under pressure, learn, learn, learn. It's very dangerous. Why? Because the pupil lost the motivation. I remember when I not a real continental style elementary school perform, because I socialized a small village, very low level of quality. Therefore, a little bit American style elementary school was, but generally the continental elementary and secondary school took under pressure. And I very surprised when I started my university studies, majority of my fellow lost the motivation to the university. It's very dangerous. Because why? Because took under pressure the pupil step from the kindergarten, good elementary school. Some places necessary to take exam, even to the elementary school. Later, from elementary school, good secondary school. And it's very dangerous because the pupil lost the motivation. And other way, the American style of education system, which construct the character, not the information-based. Look at, for example, the secondary school movies made in Hollywood. No information necessary to learn, but, for example, take a practice of debate. It's a rhetorical experiences gained from the education. And very interesting, at the end of education, chain of education, when graduated and received the diploma, know the same. Why? Because look at the history. If somebody learn the history in elementary school, for example, start with human evolution and close the history of recent time. Look at the secondary school, which is the first item, human evolution, and which is the last, the recent history. Look at the university, which is the first item, human evolution. Therefore, recycle. Therefore, very easy to compensate. If somebody not able to learn the human evolution in elementary school, may compensate in the secondary school. If fail in the secondary school, may compensate. Therefore, elementary school and secondary school, except some special knowledges, for example, mathematics or languages, not so important, not so important. For example, to my children, very frequently tell about my very bad grade in the elementary and the secondary school. The first construction of education, which I enjoyed, it was the university. Because my interest is very special. Okay, but turn back, a lecture. This is a one-direction education. Yeah, but why I spoke about the different types of education? Because a continental-style educated pupil in the open question situation react a survival reaction. Save the vital organs and avoid the eye connection. Because in the continental education, this is the condition of survival. But the American pupils and the students in the Central European University open for the debate. Why? Because for them, not necessary the information. And thought in career. Because in continental educated pupil, necessary survived exam from exam to exam. In the American socialization, there is a lot of weakness, American education system, but very important advantage of the American education, thinking in career. For example, I would like to be engineer, therefore picking the different information and courses to the how I am able to become engineer, or for example artist or teacher, looking the life in the trajectory of career. Okay, turn back. Lecture. The second important information, I don't know how constructed the value of credits, but some Erasmus construction, 3 credits or other construction, 2 credits, and I listened that some courses the value is 4 credits. I don't know why. It's a question and the job of employees of Office of Education. Good. Participation not mandatory, but at the end of each lecture I will read the list of participants, not for punishment, because it's not mandatory. But if somebody more or less participate in the course, I take into consideration somehow. Because I am able to take a lecture, it's empty room, because I started my career 30 years ago, therefore I turned to the wall, I am able to speak 1.5 hours. But I would like to avoid the psychological consequences of that, because close to the mental hospital and okay. But I try to somehow support the student who participate in my lecture, but the rate of participation, of course, change time by time. But necessary to realize and memorize, because it's very large audience who participated and who not. But if somebody never participate, it's possible to perform this course, because each of my lecture you can see as a TV series during the weekend. It's possible, but a little bit the differences between the looking the video or participate in the lecture, like participate in the concert and looking on the TV. It's different. There is an interaction, there is a personal connection, personal interaction. To my mind, it's much better. Okay, take into consideration in the process of evolution. Exam. It's very far. It will happen in May and June, but necessary to know some elementary information for planning the process of trajectory of process. Written exam. It's very important, because I try to sometimes oral exam, because it's much more interactive situation, and there is a much higher rate of correction of information, but the knowledges and the oral competence of the students so different that it's much better to take a written exam. I don't know, because it's dependent on the epidemic situation. It's a computer-based, CoSpace-based exam will or paper-based. I don't know, but we will approaching to the May. We will see which form of the exam we will perform. First, secondly, you may repeat exam more times, because my interest not under-evaluate the student, but somehow support for learning at least the basic materials. And I will record the best grade. You will repeat. Everybody, after the written exam, will receive a personal evaluation of written exam. And two options. You accept my evaluation and my grade, and I will record to the electronic surface map. The second option, you would like to repeat, and you will repeat many times, a lot of times. Okay, exam period will start in the middle of May and will start 24th June. The exam will contain two types of question. Definition, it's not a classical definition, but a definition, a short answer. It's 3, 4, 5 sentences necessary for answer. And the short essay, some arguing, some longer one. It's 1 page or 1.5 page long. It depends on the character or the type version. The list of expected questions I will load up to the CoSpace. If some question not understand, it's no problem. You can discuss about me. Personal evaluation sent via CoSpace message service, which is the way of preparation to the exam. The first one, regular participation with a lot of advantages, like recorded registration of list of participants. The second one, I will load up to the CoSpace a handout which contains the elementary and basic information about this course. Consultation. If somebody would like to discuss some question with me, there is a possibility for that. Electronically, this is my email address. Each of my slide series start with my email address. You are able to realize. The second one, personal, after the course, but I am very exhausted after the course, I would suggest to you. And finally, ask a consultation date. My office is located in the middle of the corridor, first floor. Okay, good. These are the elementary information about the course. You have some question? Later we will return to the problem, and if you have, we will approaching to the exam period, I will repeat this information. But some students don't participate recently and able to see on the video record. So no question? Good. Cheers.
What's that?
If somebody would like to drink and eat, it's no problem. Because it's tragical that the modern society divided the intellectual joy and the physical joy. In the antiquity, it was the same. If somebody would like to enjoy the intellectual, for example, information and eat something, it's not disturb me. If somebody would like to survive physically, not only intellectually, there is a possible, it's open situation for that. Okay, but look at the course. Look at the course. About the course is necessary to start each case is a definition of basic fundamental terms. Very important. Because there are a different strategy of knowledges. Recently, there is only one generally accepted, legitimated form of knowledges. It's rational knowledges of the world. But very important to mention, it's not only one way to realize the world around us, because the rational approach to the knowledge of the world is based to the fact. If, for example, you open a disciplinary guidebook, it's based to the fact. Which is the fact? Some mention which verifiable or deniable. Which is the peculiarity of the rational knowledges. No final knowledges, because you open one guidebook, one university course book or handout published 50 years ago, majority of facts inspired. No final knowledges. But which is the advantages? It's possible to learn this information. But in a rational way, no final knowledges. Beside the rational cognition, there are two other ways of cognition. There is a religious cognition. Look at, for example, there is a Muslim student in the audience. Okay, you know the Quran. How started the career of Muhammad? Met with Gabriel Archangel. If I mention that personally, me yesterday met with Gabriel Archangel, you believe? Not. Why? Because recently the religious knowledge is not legitimate. I am a Protestant. It's my way. Because I came from eastern part of the Hungary, each people Protestant. And I am a hobby Christian. I have free times, I walk into the church. It's a majority of European hobby Christian. And it's very interesting, they're not so far my church from here, from this building, and we queuing because there is a custom in the Protestant how the name mass, queuing and going out from the church, and there is a small notice. If somebody step out from the church, step to the missionary area. Why so interesting? Because the cognition way inside of the church, it's not accepted out of the church. It's a special, safe place for the believers. Not each period of the history was the same, because in the Middle Ages, for example, the regional cognition closed to safe place, for example, in the universities. Therefore, the chances change historical period by historical period. It's changed. Okay, which is the advantage of religious cognition? There is a final cognition. When Gabriel Archangel spoke with Muhammad, he didn't hesitate, because with help of speech of Gabriel, received the final cognition. But for us, only a story. We don't receive or didn't receive the final cognition. And the third way of cognition is art, cognition of the art. A little bit halfway on the rational and the religious cognition. Because the best poet don't become the best one because received the high graduated diploma. No, some other way. Okay, but I have a license for rational cognition. In the rational cognition, but I speak about the different way of the cognition, because very important to realize it's not whole of the world, only one slice of the world. Okay, turn back to the story. In the rational cognition, necessary to define the term, the elementary concept. What mean the elementary concept? For us, for understanding evolution of in the world economic system, necessary define the space. Why? Because world economic system unfolded in space, in the global space. The second one, a time, because unfolded in time, the world economic system. Necessary define the concept of world economic system and the concept of Europe. Because the starting place, when unfolded and occupied whole of the earth, was Europe. It's Europe standardized system was the basic elementary paradigm of world economic system. Look at the first, a space. A space basically try to analyze different disciplines. The first one, a history. If you sorry, if you open a historical guidebook or historical map, you are able to realize at least three information. The first one, distance. You can see each of historical maps, there are at the corner a scale. A scale hard to understand which is the real distance in the real physical space which transform a map. The second information, a geomorphology. Look at, for example, this is a map about Czech Republic. A green surface, it's a valley or plain area. The brown, light brown, it's a hill area, and the dark brown is a mountain area. Able to realize this is a language. This is a real language. Not only the language is an oral language exists. One other language is a map. If somebody learn the language of maps, a different direction, for example, electronic engineering, there is a special maps. Probably you saw this kind of the maps, of geographical maps. It's a special language. If somebody learn the language of maps, able to understand much more than, for example, direct communication, oral communication. Okay, and finally, majority, because the history dominated by historical topics. For example, political structure. Here, a political structure of Germany. It's very interesting because history of German folks unfolded in tribal structure. German principalities unified only in the 19th century. Before that, Bavaria, Saxonia, it's different. Prussia, it's a different country, existed as a different countries. Okay, at least in historical maps, you are able to understand and realize three basic information: distance, surface, geomorphology, and the political or cultural structure. Look at the geography. Real discipline of space, geography. In the geography, there are a different spatial structure. Look at the simplest version of spatial structure. Spheres of the Earth. The first one, lithosphere. It's a rock surface of the Earth. The size of that, it's 120 and 60 kilometers large area. This is the not mantle. This is the crust of the Earth. The second one, a pedosphere, a soil. Very important, because if we are looking recently on the Earth, living 8 million, or American English, billion people. Why so dangerous? Because the size of pedosphere, the average size of pedosphere, half meter. Some places more meter, some more centimeter. Why so important? Because agriculture based on half meter, survival of humankind based on half meter, and the majority of arable land under chemical therapy. Pesticide and fertilizer, not a real soil. But without chemical therapy, 2 million or 2 billion people no bread. It's very important, it's a great and very heavy question. Which is the good way? Organic production or chemotherapy? Recently, to my mind, no other way. Some part of the soil, half meter, very fragile, necessary take under chemotherapy. Okay, hydrosphere, majority of the surface, 71% of the surface of Earth covered by global ocean. Why is so interesting? Because recently the most popular, for example, it's a space travel. For example, space shuttle construction to the travel to the Mars. But very important to realize, recently going down to the global ocean to 4,000 meters, the expanse of 4,000 meters down to the global ocean, say that construct a space shuttle travel to the moon. It's very important and very interesting. Good. Biosphere, it's plants and animals. Atmosphere, very important to realize that we are living at the down of atmosphere. Look at, for example, if one, for example, animal living at the down of ocean and taking up, it's blowing up. A little bit same the situation in the case of human. For example, the people, it's going to the mount, field, for example, changing the pressure of atmosphere. And the ideal condition for us, there are at the bottom. We are living in the ocean, atmosphere ocean at the bottom. And the density of atmosphere, it's decrease. And for example, my favorite picture about the Italian, how the name is, it's going up to the mountain. Hiker, yeah. Sorry, because it's a little bit late and the words don't come easy. Okay, the hiker, it's walk up to the Mount Everest. It's a Chomolungma, it's a higher point of the Himalaya, and behind them, exhalated oxygen, because it's very low the level of oxygen, and behind them, free Sherpa, you know the Sherpas, living in the high part of the mountain, smoking. Because the vital capacity of their lung, it's enough for even the smoking. Okay, we are living in the bottom of the, at the down of atmosphere, and very important new sphere, new geographical sphere, are anthroposphere. Anthropo, human, a sphere. Which is the anthroposphere? If we are looking, for example, a night picture about the Earth, a light area mean and show the anthroposphere, the sphere which constructed the human activity. And I call your attention, we will return later, here are Europe, which are the pole of Europe, civilization pole. Northern Italy, and its low countries, recently is the southern part of England, and Belgium and the Netherlands. Very interesting. You remember for this picture, why? Because in the 11th century, at the beginning of High Middle Ages, 11th century, where was and where were the economic poles of Europe? The same place. Therefore, very important and very important the function of the history. Which is the history? Some word necessary to speak about the meaning of history and the function of the history. a history, a memory of communities, not only whole of the humankind, a memory of small villages. I socialized a small village. And I remember, during my childhood, for my children, I told a story that on the year of my birth, introduced electricity supply to my village. Therefore, generation of my parents socialized before electricity supply. And it's a close society, very, very, very close society. And in the traditional community, religious community, one of the tasks of a child was checking oldest relatives. For example, my mother told to me, sister of my grandmother, visit and check the mental and physical condition. And I remember, I take the bike, arrive, and sister of my grandmother sat on the window and read one novel. And approach, and I ask which is the condition, and which is the novel, which read, and this was Anna Karenina from Tolstoy. And very interesting, she bore 10 children. 10 children. And it's similar, which performed by Jesus in the 2000 before, because his husband died after the birth of last child. And alone bred 10 children. Unbelievable. Very small. Okay. And she was born in the Austro-Hungarian monarchy. And she had stories from the beginning of 19th centuries. And very impressive. Like a telescope, I was able to realize what happened in the small village at the beginning of the 19th century. Okay, it's a memory, a small village's memory, urban history. This is a memory of urban community, and a memory of whole of the nation, memory whole of the humankind. Why so important the memory? You know the Alzheimer's symptom? Somebody lost the memory. It's very dangerous. Not only the personal case, but for whole of the community. This is the meaning of importance of the history. Because if the history and the memory, the collective memory, not able to function well and healthy manner, will destroy the communities too. Okay, take a time. So, Anthropocene, Anthroposphere, this is the human constructed, which is the peculiarity of the Anthroposphere. Recently, the size of Anthroposphere is growing and growing and growing. And majority of us socialized to artificial environment. And we are not able to survive in artificial. I socialized partly in traditional time, but if I travel to, for example, in the Valley of Congo in Africa, I am not able to survive one night. Why? Because I have no skill for survival in real traditional condition. Real traditional condition. Okay, Anthroposphere. Go back. And the last one, the seventh sphere, a noosphere. A noosphere. A noosphere introduced a Jesuit monk, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, published in the middle of the 20th century, La Phénomène Humain. This is the title of the book. And he defined the noosphere, an intellectual sphere around the earth. Recently, it's identified to the internet, but it's appeared much before appearance of the internet. On the time of Chardin, Pierre de Chardin, it's mean, for example, libraries, universities, academical institutes, which cover the intellectual cover of the earth. Okay, look at the next. Ecological space. Now look at a real definition. ecological space. This is a generally accepted definition of the ecological space, ecosystem name, ecological space, published American ecologist Eugene Paul Adam in the middle of 20th century on the fundamentals of ecology. Look at the definition. If you learn a definition, it's very good technology, realized some key mention, key concept, key terms. Okay, any unit that include all of the organism, because the logic of the ecosystem, it's animal and the plants, the biosphere, and ecotope, it's a physical environment of that. Okay, after unit include all of the organism, for example, the community in a given area. It's very important, given area. Because the given area mean, in ecology, no hierarchy of unit. Look at, for example, geography. In the geography, there is a macro region, meso region, and how the name is, it's a micro region. It's like a Matyosha doll. There is a Russian doll, you know, probably. It's a smaller and larger, taking to one to other. In the case of ecology, no Matyosha logic. Each ecosystem is a unique. Look at, for example, maybe one ecosystem, whole of the earth, maybe one ecosystem on the puddle, on the pavement. As a unit. But, continue. Interacting with with physical environment so that flow of energy leads to the clarified, defined trophic structure, biotic diversity, and material cycle. Why is so important, the flow of energy? Because we are able to describe the history of humankind in the logic of energy. Because we are using energy for moving, for working, for everything which is necessary for human survival, necessary energy. Somebody remember the first law of energy?
Maybe that it doesn't disappear completely and it doesn't appear by itself, but it has to be transferred between different objects.
Yeah, it's true. On the word, the quantity of energy steady. No production and no consummation. Only transformation. One form of energy to other form of energy. Therefore, energy is and are and was steady. Why is so important? If we are looking at human history, majority, 99.9% of energy came or come from the sun via solar radiation. In the sun, there is a thermonuclear fusion, hydrogen to helium. Solar radiation, 100% of the energy on the Earth, on the human history, came or come from solar radiation. 3 million, using the British English, 3 million years ago, appeared a new form of life. It's based to photosynthesis. Able to, first bacteria, later plants. Able to transform nuclear energy to chemical energy, to the body of plants, body of bacteria. Very low rate of efficiency, 1 or 2%. 1 or 2% able to convert to chemical energy. And to the photosynthesis based the food chain. Chemical energy. Herbivores, carnivores, and our best friends, omnivores. And key indicator of human evolution and the human history, the rate of conversion. The human able convert chemical energy, if you are visiting to the restaurant or for meals, for eating, chemical energy on the body to moving energy and heating energy. And very important, the rate of conversion. The human able convert 18% of chemical energy to moving energy. And the great domesticated animal, only 10%. Only 10%. It's dominate human history until the Industrial Revolution. Why? Because in the consequence of Industrial Revolution, introduced fossil fuels. Much higher rate compared with the somatica. Somatica is a body energy. Before the Industrial Revolution, named a somatical energetical system. Why? Because each of energy based to the muscle energy of human, muscle energy of domesticated animals, and the simple tools, simple devices like windmill and the water mill. No other way. No other way. If we are looking at the energy conversion, old Egyptian dynasty was on the same level than the kingdom of France on the age of King of Sun. It's Louis XIV. Great historical distance, but energetical background was the same. Why so important, these differences between the domesticated animals and the human? Because, there's a chart somewhere. Over there. Thanks a lot. If we are looking how many percent of energy produced by human from early civilization to the early modern time until the 18th century, 70% of energy came from the muscle of human, and only 30% came from the simple tools, windmill, water mill, and the domesticated animals. Which is the consequence of that? The value of human power much higher than any other. For example, this is one reason of great survival of slavery. Why? Which area survived the slavery in high rate? For example, America and Russia. In Russia, there is a Russian speaker, a holop. It's a 30% even at the beginning of 19th century of the rate of the proportion of the peasant. Why? Because in the case of low density of population, very important somehow, it's saving the working power. This is the same situation in the case of Americas. Why? Because the local population, the Aboriginals, the Indian population, 90% expired, died. Not for the weapons, but for the epidemics and for the European-based infections. Okay, and which is the date of expire and abolition in the of the slavery? 19th century, when prohibited slavery. 15. On the peace treaty close to the Napoleonic Wars. Why? Because appeared Industrial Revolution and the gap between the animal and the human power lost the importance. And which was the last great battle of the slavery? The American Civil War between 60 to 65. And after that, importance of the slavery lost the importance. Because the energetical power of the human Recently, for example, I remember to my childhood the great differences, lifestyle of men and women. Why? Because in the peasant society, necessary took heavy works. Heavy works. For example, plowing with animals. There is a people experience plowing? No plowing. It's quite old. Not with the engine, but with horse draw plowing. It's in this case no option. Job for man and job for woman. But recently in the modern society, the physical power not so important because majority of work, majority of job, not physical based. And very interesting and for me that the people who don't know my job, that I am a university professor, thought about me, I am a security guard. Everybody, even for example, I receive a fellowship to Munich, Germany. People stop at me on the street, help to me, please, bringing a piano one step to others. Why me? Why me? And finally I realized, I found 3 reasons why I thought about me. Nobody knows that I have intellectual job. The first one, I have not an intellectual face. I received this heritage from my parents because it's because the classical, it's a large forehead and fine construction. It's not. I'm much closer to the boxer. This is the first reason. And secondly, I'm quite large. Because I socialized in the villages education system, physical education system. I was 8 years old when I started to work in the household. It's normal, not me, everybody, every other people. And in urban area, if somebody are Czechia large, it's not associated to the intellectual fine job. The security guard, it's punching the other people and some aggressive mentality and so on and so on. And the third one, very interesting, a Hungarian society, quite a large part of the audience not Hungarian. But necessary to know, a Hungarian society a little bit feudal, hierarchized. And very interesting, I realized during my military service that the people who was born in high rank of society communicate different manner, speaking down. And I have a lot of friends from high rank of Hungarian society, and it's very kind people, but socialized down communication system. It's spontaneously. Because I socialized a peasant environment, I am not able to communicate down. Therefore, nobody think about me that I have an intellectual job. Okay, I turn back. Flow of energy. Back to the definition. Okay, flow of energy leads to clearly defined traffic structure, biotic diversity, material cycle, exchange of material between living and non-living part within the system is an ecosystem. Okay, we are over the ecosystem, and look at the last spatial definition, the mental space. Somebody listened about the mental space? A mental space, imagine in our brain about the space. It's very important. The first research is performed in Chicago in northern part of the United States, and 2 important peculiarity. Somebody participated in the mental mapping? Nobody. The mental mapping is very simple. Somebody who participated in the mental mapping received a white sheet and asked a question, drawing the information from, for example, lodging to the workplace. Therefore, realize somehow necessary to draw the spatial information. And these first first analysis realized two important peculiarities of mental space. The first one, selectivity, selection. Why? Because the people draw the spatial information from lodging to the job, to the workplace, which traveled more years on the same trajectory. And the majority of landscape weren't able to realize. Only the places where necessary take decision. Turn right, turn back, change, for example, the bus or something necessary to do. It's very important. The brain, the memory, it's try to save the capacity of the brain. You know probably how many percent of the calories using by brain. How many percent? Somebody know? 27. 27% of the calorie we are eating used by brain. There is a special fitness, thinking a lot. Okay, but turn back. Selectivity. This is the first one. The second one, emotion. The people, there are emotional connection to the space. For example, in Szeged, in this city, there is a place where I had a small accident, my stomach is up. Or, for example, in Chicago, distributed in the elementary student pupil pictures about different districts of Chicago, French-based city. And elementary school pupil commented which emotion came from the viewing of picture. And very important connection, a picture about the building with swimming pool, in the high society pupil, joy, and the immigrant, hate. Because look, the swimming pool on the other side of the fence. It's very important because people, there are emotional relations. On the other side, in my case, I socialized in the socialist epoch. It was the Iron Curtain period, probably you listened about it. And when I approaching to the boundary, my stomach is up. My stomach is up. Because on my young period, it's very harsh boundary control had. And my memory is saved somehow. This is a half mental space map which published in Australia. Of course, for Australian, the core area of the world is Australia. And for example, Europe on the right and America, United States in the left corner. It's not a real mental map, but some subjective point of view able to show. But look at a real mental map. Somebody memorize your name?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Look at the mental map of Paris. Somebody visited in Paris? Paris? Okay, I suggest everybody, unbelievable place. There are in Europe some global city. To my mind is Paris and London. No other. It's a Berlin. It's a border case. But my second favorite, Amsterdam. I lived near to Amsterdam for half year. I enjoyed. No time speaking about why, but it's an excellent place. Mental map. A mental map, it's one of the first generation of the mental map, published in the middle of 70s, and the American geographer made Stanley Milgram. The logic of the mental map, necessary to draw the important buildings and places to the white sheet and write the name of these places. The first one, the winner is a Seine River. If somebody visits in Paris, that's very difficult to avoid because it's halfway, it's cut to part a city. 84.3% of participants of the experiment was able to draw the right place of Seine and able to write the name of this river. The second one, outskirts of Paris. Why? Because in the downtown, it's living only the tourists, very rich people. The majority who participated in the experiment lived on the banlieue. It's an outskirt of the city. And the third one, Étoile Arc de Triomphe, which constructed by Napoleon at the end of Champs-Élysées. And Notre Dame, probably you know, it's a very famous small church. And the Tour Eiffel, which constructed in the 19th century in the World Exposition. And according to original plan, necessary to deconstruct after the World Exposition, but everybody loved that construction that reconstructed more times, and recently one of the symbol of Paris. But very interesting, the last one, Bois de Boulogne. Bois, it means forest. Why is so important the forest for the people?
It's in the middle. It's in the middle of the city.
Sorry?
It's in the middle of the city.
No, it's a outskirt.
Because the majority of people, they were like, maybe...
There is some function of the Bois de Boulogne.
Isn't that the place where the prostitutes are? Isn't that the place where the prostitutes are in Paris?
Of course. This is the most important plaza of prostitution, because the traditional place is our Place Pigalle, but recently the largest area of prostitution. Why so interesting? Because in the marketing there is an indicator of efficiency of information. How efficient of the knowledge is of information? If we are looking at this experiment, half women, half men. Who are the consumer of prostitution? Men. %49.1% not only was able to draw to right place, but able to write the right name too. Therefore, if we are looking at the efficiency of information, this is the most efficient. Compared to Notre Dame or Arc de Triomphe. Okay.
Because of emotions.
Emotion.
A lot.
Yeah, probably. Look at the time. If we are looking at the time, the first, if we would like to understand the relation, the human relation to the time, necessary to understand which are the logic of timing. If we are approaching from the historical past, two astronomical experiences based on calendaries. There are sun calendaries and the moon calendaries. Recently, the Christian calendaries are sun calendaries, but the old Chinese calendaries, to my knowledge, is a moon calendaries. The old Jews calendary, a moon calendary. And a Muslim student may verify, but it's possible not true. But when some place I read, the old Muslim calendar is a moon calendar similarly. True or not?
Yes.
Not true? True. Okay. Okay. It's very important to verify because this is the advantage of multicultural audience. Because I read some books, it's possible true or not. There are local experts for verifying. Okay, sun and moon calendaries recently dominate the global civilization as sun calendar, but very important to realize that there are rivals in the moon calendaries. Very important milestone of calendar evolution, appearance of agrarian revolution, because in consequence of great change of subsistence system from hunting gathering to agrarian activity, increased importance of vegetation periods and the seasons. The next one, liturgical hours. Very famous, for example, in the Muslim custom, one pillars of Islam is five times. My question, in the traditional not a hobby Christian, but the traditional Christian custom heritage, how many times necessary to pray? How many times?
Once, no?
A day.
Once.
How many times necessary to pray a day? Because in the Muslim heritage, 5 times a day. But in the Christian,
Once a day, no?
It's not specific.
4 times. 4 times. Not so far. Not so far. Not so far from the Muslim heritage. But recently, majority only once a week, 2 weeks once. It's a hobby system. Okay, but very important if, for example, you read a Middle Ages diary, the timing after the first prayer or before the first prayer, because no watch on the hand. Therefore, for example, timing, very important, the timing position to the liturgical hours, and appear the mechanical clocks. First time on the tower, city hall, on the tower of the church, and so and so. And very interesting, the first generation of the mechanical clocks half turn right to black and half back right to, which is the other one? Left, sorry. Unbelievable. Yeah, but the reason, because I take this lecture very late, because no crossroads with other courses, but the price of that I'm not the best condition. I try to relax a little bit, but in a free lecture, this is the disadvantages, because it's a dictionary, it's go back, but help me, please, in this situation. I say I'm very aged, and in my age it may happen. Okay, turn back. Mechanical right to left and left to right. Why so interesting? Because in the 18th century, on the time of 18th century, standardized, everything standardized, metrical system, so and so, and standardized, the clock is turned, it's left to right. But very interesting, somebody visited in Prague, capital of Czech Republic, somebody? Very important to realize, in Josefov, district of Prague, saved the mechanical clocks turned back. And the tourist is very surprised, because it's sometime half hour before was at 2 o'clock, and recently 1:30. What happened? The scale is different. From saving of tradition, saved this classical style of mechanical clocks. Okay, device of timing, the simplest version, sundial. It's a stick, but weakness of the sundial that during night and cloudy weather it's not so correct. Water clock, it's applied by Greek civilization. There is a scale on the barrel and flowing back and go and back water. Incense burner and the candle, this is the timer similarly, and the mechanical clocks finally. Okay, but it's a great item. Okay, we will stop here in the historical time. Thanks a lot for your attention.